Hey everybody, welcome to a CSS layout tutorial. I just wanted to do a quick run through of the process in order for you to create a layout using CSS divs or sections. In order to do that, I have my Dreamweaver open and I have a sandbox site managed, and within that sandbox site I'm going to obtain a copy of the CSS layout template.dwt file. That's a demo file that the teacher will provide you with, and we want to make sure that that template is saved in the templates folder, which you can see here, and that's in my sandbox file. Just to let you know as well, I will give everybody a copy of the instruction sheet that will kind of walk through everything that I'm talking about here with this process. So the next step I'm going to do is I'm going to create and attach a new style sheet to this template. So I'm going to go File, New, CSS, and I'm going to save this as Layout, and I'm going to make sure that it is going in the Styles folder of this project. Now once I create that layout, I'm going to flip back over into my template page, and this is where I will attach the style sheet to it by going to File, Attach Style Sheet. I'm going to browse and locate that sandbox style layout. Click OK. Now you'll know that it's been attached by looking here. You'll now get this little toggle back and forth, or you can even look at the actual code of your template and you'll notice that in line number 10, for me, the style sheet is connected. So the next step for us is going to be to add a new tag selector just to make sure that that is working. So I'm going to stay in the split code view and I'm going to add a new style. So we're going to use this CSS designer panel on the side. I'm going to make sure that my layout is selected as the source, so that now when I go down to here and add a new selector, I can add that for the body tag. So I'm going to start typing, even though it was auto-populated, I'm still going to start typing it just to simplify it, and I'm going to select body. Enter. Now when I get that body tag, I'm just going to set a couple of simple properties just to make sure that it's actually connected and working well. So down below, I'm going to go to this category here, background, and I'm going to add a background color. And I'm just going to add a color of gray. And the second I added that gray, you notice now that I can see actively that that attached CSS style sheet is working, which is perfect. The other thing I'm going to do within that body tag is I'm going to go down and I'm going to set all the margins under the layout section to be 0 pixels. So now that gives me 0 margin around the inside edge of the body tag. All right, so the next step I'm going to do after I've got that all connected, I'm actually going to move over onto this page and start looking at this code, because I need to be selective about the areas that I'm highlighting to create these different layout items. So I'm going to flip over just to give some more space into the code view. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight everything in between both body tags. So I've got a starting body tag here and I've got an ending body tag here. Everything between those two tags is what's going to be visible on a web page. So I'm going to make sure that I highlight all of those. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Insert and I'm going to add a section. Now this section that I'm going to add, I'm going to give it a name. And to give it a name, I want to make sure that I'm down here in this ID section. And I'm going to call this wrapper. Now the wrapper is going to wrap or contain all of the information or content on my single web page. So it will wrap around all, as you can see here, content. The next step, I'm going to select the CSS rule. And in this step here, because it's the first time I'm adding a selector or any type of a new CSS rule, I have to make sure that I'm defining it in the actual layout.css. And you can see when I hit that drop down, instead of including it only in this document, I want to make sure that these rules are set up on that external layout.css page. When that is selected, I'm going to click OK. Now we get a different type of a box here. To me, this is a little bit easier. Instead of using the CSS designer panel, we still will have to use this over here, but if I can get away with it, I'd rather use this particular rule definition menu. So in this particular step, once I get to here, I'm going to add a couple of new settings here. So I am going to go to the background category, and I'm going to make the background of this and hit apply. That'll lock that background color of white in. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to the box category, and I'm going to add a width of 1200 pixels. And these are just various settings that I'm adding. You can obviously make the choices that you would like for all these things, but I'm just for demo purposes using these numbers, no major thing. And under the margin category, I'm going to set this to be auto and apply. Now the last thing I'm going to do, and what the auto does before we move on, is it's going to center that particular box that's 1200 pixels wide containing all my content in a wrapper. It's going to center that. It's going to find automatically where the middle is of that viewable page. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a little border for some decoration. So I'm going to add a solid border. I'm going to add that as a width of 2 pixels. And lastly, I'm going to create that in the color of black. And we can either click on this button here and select it, or just simply type in 3 zeros to get that 0 color and hit apply. Now I don't really see anything as of yet, but once I set up those wrapper settings and click OK, and lastly OK, you'll notice in the code that I get this wrapper right below my body tag. So I'm going to just give it a little bit of space with my code, and I'm going to go down to here, and you can see that now this wrapper starts right after the body and finishes right before the body tag, which is now wrapping around all of the content on my page. And more importantly, when I toggle over into the design view, you will get the view of that wrapper being laid on top of this gray body tag. So if I then preview my page in a browser, after saving all of my pages, you'll see that it's laid out, perfectly finding the center with a white background laid on top of the body tag that has a gray background. So now we're going to continue by adding other elements to this page. So I'm going to go back in the split code because I need to use these. I'm going to select line 16, which has got all of the information pertaining to the header of this page. Now I can also not only use the insert panel to go to a header, I can also use these tools in the insert menu. And if you roll over and you can see these are all the same tools that we saw in the insert menu, I'm going to insert a new header. This header is wrapping around the selection that I already made. I'm going to call it header. And I'm going to apply a new rule. The next time I do this, notice that layout.css is already selected for me. So I can just simply go ahead and say OK, because this rule header is going to be applied to my layout.css file. Now at this particular point, I'm going to make a couple of changes here to the different properties. One of the things that I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a new background color. And these colors are just to kind of show me the different areas of the page and how they'll get laid out. So if we define colors, it makes it easier to see where these elements are going to be within the actual wrapper. So I'm just giving them random colors to get started. We can always make changes later down the line. I'm also going to go to the box category, and I'm going to tell this to have a height of 100 pixels high. Now, what you'll notice is when I hit apply and OK, you'll see in the actual screen that 100 pixel high orange banner is now showing up on the top of that page. And if I save all, preview it in a browser, we now begin to start seeing the layout take shape. I'm going to go back in and I'm going to go into the split code, and I'm going to do this repeatedly for the number of different sections. I'm paying careful attention to the split code because I want to keep that nice space of these different elements. So I'm going to now highlight the area where I think my main navigation is going to go. I'm going to add a navigation, or simply go to Insert, Navigation, paying careful attention to add the ID. I am not adding it to the class section. This must be an ID that I'm creating a new rule in the layout. Okay. Now the navigation, I'm going to give the text color. Be careful that you're not doing background color of the actual element. I'm going to the category type, and I'm going to make that type set up to be 000. Forgive me. FFF, we're going to make that white. We're going to set the background color to be 000, and that's the background color of black. And lastly, I'm going to set in the box category the height of 50 pixels high. Hit apply, hit OK, and now we can see that that navigation area has been set up with a space where we'll be able to put menus and navigational buttons. Going back in, giving it some space, keep it nice and spread out. I'm then going to highlight all of the content in this particular main area content to the final paragraph tag. This element is going to be called main. ID main, new CSS rule. In this section here, we're just going to go to the box category, and we're going to tell the padding to be 10 pixels. And what that's going to do is it's going to give some breathing room on the inside of this element that we call main. So I've set my padding at 0, and I'm leaving it same for all. That's the only setting I'm going to change and save. And if you do look carefully, you'll now notice that inside the main area, we get this little breathing room area here on the outside. That's because we've set that padding so that it's not right up against the edge, as you can see here in some of these elements that I did not change the padding with. Okay. And finally, I'm going to go back over and I'm going to make sure that I'm going to highlight the last area, which would be our footer section. So I'm going to highlight these two lines, line 26 through 28, two lines of code that will become my footer area. Insert footer, ID, footer, new rule, OK. And this footer is going to have a background color. I'm going to make this the same color as the header up top, F93, and apply it. I'm going to add underneath the block, I'm going to actually use this text align center feature to get the text in that footer in the center of that element. And then lastly, in the box category, I'm going to set the box height to be 50 pixels. I'm going to add padding to give it that breathing room inside of the element of 10 and leave it the same for all. Apply, OK, and OK. And once I save all again, or file save all, when I preview it in the browser, we now see that I have this layout taken care of. So I have the layout, all these different elements, and of course I can always go back and make changes to those CSS styles as I wish. Now, in the actual document itself, one of the things that I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new template based off of this element. But in order to do that, I must actually finish up using this or creating this template before I then stamp it out, if you will, and use it for a number of other web pages. So in order to use a template, one of the things that we have to do is we do have to put what's called an editable region around the content that I do want to change in the future. And if you're really looking carefully at this code here, the main area is that center area of the page where the main content will be. In most cases, the banner on any website will stay the same. We want to have consistent navigation. It will remain the same on every page, and the footer and content will probably be the same as well. But what I want to do is I do want to change up from page to page, which makes sense, the content that I'm going to be using. So in order to insert what we call an editable region, it will allow me to change this content on pages but leave these other elements remaining the same. I'm going to go into the split code and I'm going to just insert this right below the main. And I'm going to do so by going to Insert, Template, Editable Region. And I'm just going to call this Content and click OK. Now we're going to have to do a little bit of manual moving of the code. So once I insert that element, I'm going to make sure that the template editable region content is right below my main. It comes with already defined text, and it's just simply the name of the actual element that you've added. I'm going to delete that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight this closing ending editable region, cut it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste that right at the very bottom or right before that main element ends. So I'm creating that sandwich, if you will, of an editable region. And when I hit save, if you're looking in your browser, you will now see this content editable region highlighted in green. And that's a really important step for when we use this template to create new pages from that template. And here's real quick how to do that. Now, as we've saved everything, we've checked our page, we went out to look at it on the browser, we can see that we really don't see anything within the editable region. But the last step in order to begin building pages from this layout template DWT file has a layout CSS. That layout CSS has all the different tags that I'm going to be using and also all the layout elements that we just created. It's much more simple because I don't need to add all those settings to my HTML code. But in order to use this template, I'm now going to go to File, New, and I'm going to select Site Templates. Find the project I'm currently working on, and you will see a little preview of the template that we just created using that CSS layout. And when I click Create, it will now add a brand new HTML page, and it's entitled Untitled 3. And you'll see this note telling you that it is using the CSS layout template that we've created. Now, the first page of every website is going to be named as index. So I am going to save that page, but it's important that this index page is saved in what we call the root directory. That's your main sandbox folder. It will not go in any of these nested folders. And I'm just going to give it the name index, first page of every website. And when I do so, notice now that that editable region has come over into my index. We saw that over here on the template, but now on the index page, we can see that we get no ability to edit this top area because it is not editable, nor is a navigation, nor is a footer. But if I want to change the content information, it'll be in this area that I can make changes to it. So there is my editable region, and I can make changes, save, preview in a browser, and we now are looking at our index page. It looks very similar to the template, but it will give me the ability to swap out and add content in that area. So my hope is that that helps you creating a CSS layout, saving your template with an external style sheet, and then using that template as a page that can be stamped out, if you will, and used to create multiple web pages using the simple feature of File, New, Page from Template, and it will take us literally seconds to create brand new pages and then simply, of course, going on and adding new content for each of those pages. All right, thanks for paying attention and following along. I appreciate it. Bye now.